afternoon, everybody. This is the Francesco Abbruzzino Show. This is Frankie, your humble host. Let's see, we got a well-packed show today, but I wanted just to cover a few things. As everybody should know that watches my shows, this is my national one, and I do it all basically for free. I run all my scoop pages with over 500,000 total weekly reach, over 350,000 total fans, all free. And sometimes I'm rushed. Like just now before coming on the air, I was going through EOBs, which are a form of payment for medical doctors, and that's really what I get paid to do. And I do have my show. I did record my show for the radio airwaves yesterday. I think it's some good stuff if you're here locally and you're listening. It covers a wide variety of issues ranging from the MPPD issue to the Sarasota County vagrant issue and many other things. Next week we have Julio Gonzalez. He's running for District 74. Representative of our area. It's a tough race between him and Dina Powley. I have my concerns with Dina Powley, which I'll note during the show next week, so catch that. This Saturday I am live at 12 o'clock and WLSS 9:30 a.m., or you can just come to this station and catch the recording, or you can go to philsgang.com or WLSS.com. All right. That's that. Let's go ahead. We got a little bit of time here, and we want to make best use of it. And today I am covering the whole Ebola thing again, folks. It's just not going away. And what's happened is the whole Ebola crisis is just exploding. As everybody remembers, I've been covering this issue since the beginning. I think it was March or something like that. Started my show in December. Back then, there was just alternative media was basically covering it. Nobody really was watching it. And then around the 100 death mark, you started to see more and more coverage coming alive on the issue. And now there's even graver concern out there. The CDC director is come out and he said, look, we have some mighty concerns and we're going to make this an epidemic. They're going to upgrade the alert. And hold on, just getting a lot of my documentation together. There you go. That just before I start this, that's the other thing, folks. Sometimes I'm looking haphazard here, and that's because it's a one-man show. I do all the editing, research, hosting, run the technical aspect of this, and so sometimes I'm doing a million things. In addition to that, I'm trying to do my job that pays, running my telephonics.com company, and sometimes I'm cut short on getting information for this. And it's not like the radio show. The radio show, I have a week to prepare, and I got all the documentations. I'm pretty much up on that stuff. This stuff I'm rushing through, and if I ever do get it going and I start to generate some revenue, then I can dedicate a lot of time to research and put out a quality show on it. But let's get back into this. The CDC upgrades their alert level to 1, and this is over the Ebola breakout. Now that's their highest level. There's almost 1,000 people that are dead from this virus, folks. The Center of the Disease Control, CDC, as I said, is starting to alarm most of the world, the nation, and they have grave concerns. The WHO is also expected to fall lockstep in the next few days, increasing their alert status to a pandemic level 6, which is essentially silent martial law in most UN countries, folks. So we should be concerned about this. What's going on? And what's really surprising is the CDC is basically coming out, and their director is brushing off any concern that Ebola could come across the southern U.S. border, which, as you know from watching the show yesterday, I mentioned how several people from those countries, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Liberia, have been caught coming across the border. And those are the ones that are getting caught, folks. What about the ones that are escaping, getting by border control? You know, with so many people coming across the border, it's highly probable. But the director of the CCC says, nah, we're brushing it off. Ebola, we should not be concerned about Ebola coming across our southern border. Not at all. Frieden, who is basically was out testifying in D.C., he's the director of the CDC, he says, look, he was out there yesterday. He avoided many questions, primarily with Breitbart News. Breitbart News basically broke that there were 6 people being tested. CDC came out and said, yeah, look, all those tested negative for Ebola. And Breitbart started asking, well, what, those six, are they the six we're talking about? Where are these six located? And he wanted more detailed answers, but Frieden just wouldn't give it up. He would not give it up. All he would say is that they already have 5 patients in the U.S. who have come from West Africa countries like Liberia, Guinea, Sierra Leone. They said that all 5 tested negative for Ebola. I don't know if that's, I'm looking at it from a conspiracy side. I don't know if that's them just saying that to quell any concern in the United States. Because I tell you what, folks, once it gets out that this virus is here in the United States, you're going to start seeing a lot of concern. And I could see the government trying to quell that, trying to silence it, because they just don't want panic through the streets. Especially with there being no cure and such a high death rate. Now, this one isn't as bad as normal. Normally, it's 90%. This Ebola virus is only 60%, but that's still pretty high, folks. Basically, this is an unprecedented outbreak of Ebola. Frieden thinks, hey, it can be stopped. He believes it's going to be a long, hard fight, but they're surging forward in response to it. They're putting out all guns. They believe they have a new antivirus that the 2 Americans that came back took, and they're recovering miraculously. So they think they can handle it. In terms of supplies, they believe they have plenty of supplies to treat any patients that come up with Ebola within the country. He does, though, say that the spread is inevitable, folks. Ebola spread to the United States is just inevitable. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the possibility of getting this virus? How do you feel about them bringing 2 Americans back for treatment here when they could have brought all the resources to them for treatment? Are we taking precautionary steps at the border? They're just asking them, have you had a fever? Have you had this? Have you had that? If the person says no, okay, bye. Plus the incubation period, it's 21 days. You could get it today and not realize you have Ebola for 3 weeks. Already 1 man with U.S. Liberian citizenship has died of Ebola. He became sick on a plane ride from Monrovia to Lagos. And he exposed as many as 7 people, if not more. I can't imagine not being more. So it's only a plane ride away. And this is not the first time you've heard of this. You will find that if you do some research, this has happened quite a few times. Just in, I think it was the UK yesterday, they had a guy that died in the airport after traveling over, and he died from Ebola. Now, you shouldn't be totally concerned. We don't want to start paranoia and having people running in the streets, paranoid that they're going to come down with this disease. Basically, the virus spreads by close contact with bodily fluids. And if you're not having close contact, then there shouldn't be a great deal of concern, especially with people that have just recently traveled to South Africa. Like I said, there's no treatment or vaccine for Ebola, just some test products, test supplies that they have out there. But they feel can be contained if patients are swiftly isolated and adequate protective measures are used. We have that here in the United States. We don't see that over in the Western African countries. I think I reported yesterday that basically when they were bringing the Americans for transport back to the U.S., they were in the back of a pickup truck that served as their ambulance. They weren't in protective gear because there really is no protective gear. Equipment is lacking. And it's clear that the disease is uncontained and out of control in West Africa. So there's a great deal of concern in that regard because these guys can easily hop on a plane, end up over here in the United States, end up in Western Europe, anywhere. They've also said at the CDC that personal protective gear is just, like I said, hard to find in Liberia. And they warn that this particular danger of kissing the corpse farewell during funeral rites is a hazard. Because a lot of times you're seeing where victims are dying. And the virus is still very active in their body. You go up to kiss them, you're risking possibly infection. How difficult would that be? Imagine you out there, the audience. Your father dies from Ebola. You go up to the corpse. You want to see him one last time. You want to say your goodbyes. I've been in foreign countries. It's a lot different than here in the United States. I lived in Italy. There, someone dies, and this happened to my father. He passed away in San Giovanni in Fiore, Italia, and the body's basically kept in the house for 2 to 3 days. People come over, they visit, they mourn. The sisters, the mother, the brothers, they all hug on the father that's passed away. What if this person has Ebola? Think about it, folks. So, that's a concern. The traveling, like I said, is a concern. Ebola can cause fever, muscle aches, vomiting, diarrhea, and bleeding. If it has been fatal, like I said, in about 55-60% of the cases that it's outbroke. Just to let you know, too, I am up on my Francesco Abbruzzino Facebook page. If you want to send me a question or something, I used to have the phone line open, but we ran into a lot of trolling type issues. Feel free to shoot me an email on that, and I'm observing it if you have any questions. Sorry I just forgot to inject that. But back to the political correctness, the open borders, the environmental incompetence with Ebola. What is going on? What could go wrong, folks? And that's the question we need to start addressing. Hold on one second. Let me get something over on my screen. All right. Let me pull this document up. All right. Sorry about that. It's weird. Sometimes and it's something I learned from the radio show that I need to do better, which I'm going to start doing, is getting all your documentation prepared ahead of time in the way it's planned out. And I'm used to a bunch of different programs up on my computer and monitoring them. And it sort of hinders the whole overall performance of the show, I've noted. So I'm trying to get away from that. So basically, back to the Ebola. What happens when we combine political correctness, like I said, with open borders, mentality, government incompetence, and all that good stuff? The outbreak is now officially out of control, folks. It's out of control, the Ebola crisis. And we're citing primarily what the CDC has been communicating. The CDC has known about this outbreak since I started reporting on it back in March, back when there were just a few. And then it popped up to 100 back in April. And that's when major media started reporting on it. They reported for like 2-3 days, and then they just disappeared again. So could Ebola be in the U.S.? It's possible. There wasn't a lot of attention brought to it until just recently, in the past week or two. There's a 21-day incubation period. 71 individuals from 3 Ebola epicenter countries, basically Sierra Leone, Ghana, and Liberia. They've come across and been apprehended at the border, and they turned themselves in. Yet the CDC says there's no issue. That's 71 folks from those countries. And that's not everybody. That's the ones that have turned themselves in or been caught. Do any of them have Ebola? Could any of them be carriers of the virus? As things stand now, folks, it's hard to know. Because the U.S. government policy on contagion is that basically you go out, you ask them, do you have a communicable disease? If the answer is no, officials take them for the word and send them on their way. I think we need a more foolproof system, a process to track this down. Especially since the Ebola crisis is now taking more and more lives. Why are they doing this? That's the question. And a lot of people think it's all about economics. You had Obama back at a D.C. summit, a conference, not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, I think. And they call it the New Africa, and that it's emerging. It's growing. The middle class is growing. It's a fast-growing population. The economy is just bursting. And we can be sure that every bureaucrat out there got the message. Every corporate major media propagandist out there got the message. That you don't want to make too much of a fuss about Ebola, because it's going to give a negative connotation on Africa. Even though it's West Africa, they're going to start thinking this of all of Africa. And it's just like with the IRS scandal, folks. Obama didn't advertently go out and say, hey, look, guys, I want you to crack down on all the Tea Partiers. What he did is offered suggestions, offered hints and speeches about the Tea Party that were negative. And basically by doing that, he communicated a message to his leaders out there, in this case the IRS, and said, hey, let's do what we can to crack down on these guys. They're bad. The Tea Partiers are bad people. They're unpatriotic. So he doesn't necessarily have to go out and say, don't talk about Ebola, target the Tea Party. He does that through these speeches where he sends a message out to his team on essentially what he wants done, what his thoughts are on this issue. And this whole open border mentality is kicking our butt, folks. It's closely related to political correctness, isn't it? On that whole open border mentality. You know, the open border obsession has deep roots in the intelligentsia. They want, it's part of that whole process that's really undermining the situation here. The ivory tower types continue to spew forth on this whole open border propaganda. And again, I'm not against illegals. My father came here. He came here legally. He went back to Italy, but he came here legally. So it's not the issue of being anti-immigration. It's about being pro-common sense. The Obama administration, the top Democrats, they know full well their best solution to building a Democrat majority out there is to promote this open border, because the Latinos tend to vote with the Democrats. They tend to vote liberal because the liberals are behind the entitlement programs, the welfare programs. And these guys all love the entitlements. Who wouldn't? Hey, if I could sit home on my butt and have the government take care of everything, maybe that sounds good. I think the government ought to do what they were doing in Italy. I was amazed one day. I went back to visit my sister, and we had a new mayor in town, Barilli. And I saw all these people cleaning the streets, and you saw these nicely dressed people, and some of them bringing cappuccino out to the workers. And I said, what the heck is this? What's going on? And I was amazed that they were cleaning the streets, because in San Giovanni Fiore down in Calabria, it's a little different. They don't really clean the streets. So I asked my sister, what's going on? She said, look, Barilli came in and he said, look, if you guys want this welfare check, this 400 euros a month, you got to get out there and work for it. Get out there and clean our streets. We can't afford to hire people because we're giving you this entitlement. You shouldn't be sitting home. Go out there and clean the streets. And what it also did is exposed a bunch of people that would run around town acting like big shots, and lo and behold, they're on the government's payroll, their welfare payroll, which was surprising to my sister. So think about it, folks. We got to stop this whole entitlement thing. That's a whole different conversation that we could have. But I'll continue to report on this Ebola crisis. I think it's important. I think a lot of people are blowing it off and they don't have a lot of concern about it, where they should have more concern on the issue. Now let's talk a little bit about Homeland Security. Are they partnering with the UN Migration Organization? And is that what triggered the border crisis? And like I said, I'm not anti-illegal or anti-immigration. I am anti-illegal. The mainstream media can no longer ignore what's going on over there. They can no longer ignore that ICE is refusing to follow or enforce federal laws. Why is ICE doing this? Again, because Obama's basically put down this edict to open the borders, let it flow. ICE and U.S. Customs and Border Patrol are becoming possibly the world's largest human trafficking with this. They're using their buses, commercial airlines, to openly transport illegal aliens across the United States. And they're doing this as far away as Alaska, Hawaii, the Virgin Islands. And what they're doing is they're not notifying the government, the local state governments. There was a governor on the other day, a couple actually. They're like, hey, nobody's contacted us about the illegals being here. We didn't even know about it. Nobody contacted local authorities. We found out because we decided to go on the website and see if any were transported here. And we found out they were. And we're concerned. So they sent a letter to the president. I don't think he's written back to them. But why is this happening? It's bad enough we got the open border, but now these immigrants are being shipped all over the United States. And picture this, folks, if you will. And I got to stop saying folks. They made fun of me yesterday at the radio station. They said, we're going to have to start ending your show by saying, that's all, folks, which made me laugh. So I'm trying to stop saying that. So basically, picture this. You're sitting there. You have these immigrants, these illegal immigrants. They're being shipped throughout the United States. They're not being tested. Some have already come across with various illnesses, TB, and the form of TB down in Central America is supposed to be a pretty hazardous form that can't be cured. Some may be coming across with Ebola. We found out over 70 people have been detained from those countries, Guyana, Sierra Leone, Liberia. They're spreading them throughout the United States. This is where my conspiracy mind sets in. What are they doing? Is the president, in fact, spreading Ebola throughout the country? Is he spreading some kind of virus, some kind of disease? Is he spreading the immigrants all over so that they can start to control the entire United States in 10 years when it comes election time and these people are dreamers that can vote? Is he, I could just go on and on with all kinds of conspiracy thoughts. Why are they being spread all throughout the United States? A lot of conspiracy people will sit there and say, okay, we got Ebola. He's sending them everywhere. He's going to spark this whole contagion everywhere. You got the FEMA camps, which they don't call them FEMA camps; they're called something else. So they'll come out and say, "Oh, you guys are conspiracy guys." There's no such thing as a FEMA camp, and that's just because the terminology is different. What's going on here, folks? Think about it. I think it's important to sit and reflect on this stuff. As far back as 2011, independent media and watchdog groups were issuing warnings about this reckless dereliction of the duty of the ICE. And they were concerned about a major crisis. And that's independent media. Major media just sat by. They watched it happen. They're propagandists for the government, for major corporations. Federation of American Immigration, FAIR, highlighted the Morton memos. These Morton memos, issued by the ICE director, John Morton at the time, began in March of 2011. These memos ordered changes in policy, ensuring that ICE and the CBP would be unable to perform according to the mandates that are out there. There's a copy that I'm looking at on this one page that we researched. On June 15th of 2012, DHS Secretary Napolitano issued a memo instructing DHS to refrain from deporting illegals up to the age of 30, thereby circumventing Congress and administratively, basically, enacting the DREAM Act out there, folks. Should you be concerned? And they came out and they basically said, look, we need to examine the balance between the need for agile and compassionate responses by immigration systems and a need to preserve the integrity of the system. Among the key themes raised that they found to be of the importance of preparation and pre-established immigration policies that can be quickly implemented as soon as emergency occurs. So they basically, what these memos did is basically showed that they have been planning this all along, folks. All along. On July 18th, the IOM posted an article on their website. And they basically claimed the credit for facilitating this whole crisis. IOM stressed the need to increase assistance to unaccompanied children traveling in the United States. And an expert in there said, the ability of transit countries to deal with the situation is strained. And once in the U.S., the government's capacity to properly receive and assist child migrants is equally stretched. But they go on to say a bunch of stuff. This is an article with, I think it's in Telehub. And there's just all kinds of stuff on here where they talk about hindsight over the past year. I could go on and on with this article, but we just don't have the time for it. All right, so next, deleted emails again. We all know what happened with the IRS. Their computers went down. They lost all kinds of emails, even after saying they had them. Conspiracy buff or not, you got to say there's something wrong here, folks. There's something wrong here. Well, guess what? It's happened again. It's happened again. And this is with the deleted Obamacare emails. And they're being sought by Congress. But the administrator for the Center for Medicare and Medicaid, she says she deleted emails. And these are emails that may be detrimental to or concerning Obamacare. And she said, we deleted them because we were at capacity. My email system was at capacity. So instead of backing them up, they said, hey, we deleted them, and we don't know where they are, and we can't help you. This was all prior to the Obamacare rollout, and she deleted them instead of saving the hard copies, which is mandated by Federal Records Act. She's required to do so. And because she deleted them, she may have violated the law. This is an article that came out yesterday. And it's still remains to be seen. Is there a story here? Well, yeah, there's a story here. The fact that she deleted them is a story. But why did she delete them? Did she really delete them because the system was drained? There's got to be a process in place to say, hey, look, we need to back this stuff up. And I firmly believe there is a policy in place, and they all knew about it. I think what they're doing, the Obama administration, this lady was appointed by Obama, is they're starting to rely on saying, oops, the emails were deleted by accident, as an excuse for deleting information that may have been critical and critically negative towards Obamacare, critically negative towards IRS in terms of them going out after Tea Partiers. Think about it, folks. I mean, I have a ton of emails. I get a ton of emails, but I'm not deleting them. You know, foreign aid, foreign welfare. Isn't that basically what foreign aid is? Are we exporting welfare? Doesn't make sense. Back in '79, the Department of Education was formed from the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. The Department to Welfare and Health and Welfare. Federal programs such as SNAP, Head Start, Temporary Assistance, you name it. We have all kinds of welfare programs out there. That's why we're $7 trillion in debt. It's draining our system. These entitlements are draining the economy. And what's happening is a lot of people become reliant on them. And that's the problem with the printing of money. You can print it all the day long, and you can just pay off your debt. It kills the dollar and everything. Then once we're no longer the reserve currency, which is a great concern out there, guess what? You can no longer just print money. You have to actually pay your debt. So you got to start looking at austerity. Austerity involving all these entitlement programs. And when you start taking away the entitlement programs and enforcing austerity, you start having issues like you see in Greece, Italy, and everywhere else. Biggest problem is foreign aid. Why are we giving so much out in foreign aid? I think we announced $33 billion to Africa yesterday. And basically, foreign aid is specifically organized around 5 strategic objectives, each of which include a number of program elements, also known as sectors. These objectives are peace and security. You know, well, that's a good thing. Peace and security, counterterrorism, combating weapons of mass destruction, stabilizing operations, and all that good stuff. Investing in their people. This would be a good thing if the governments that we were giving the money to would do that and invest in their people, but you don't see that. You see a lot of corruption. But it would be a good thing if they went towards health, education, social services, protection of the vulnerable people. The other objective is governing justly with democratically, promoting rule of law and human rights, good governance, political competition, civil society. But you're not going to see that in most corrupt third world countries. That's why they're basically third world countries, because of the corrupt government. Think about it. Governing justly and democratically, promoting the rule of law. You're not seeing that. Economic growth, that macroeconomic growth, trade, investment. You might see some of that, but here's the problem. When they're promoting most of that, it's with their cronies. The cronies are the ones that are benefiting. And in turn, the government, the corrupt government, is the one benefiting. Think about it, folks. Economic growth. And then humanitarian assistance. Protect and assist the refugees. internally displaced persons and provisions. Give them some food, like the Iraqis, the 40,000 Iraqis that are stuck up on the hill. Provide them with food and service. But that's, again, not happening. These corrupt governments are taking the money. They're saying they're going to do that, and they may do a little bit of it, but are they really? And you look at the countries that are basically getting most of our aid, and think about it. Is the government really doing what they're supposed to with this financial aid? And I get the concept behind it. Provide financial aid, provide stability, provide a partner in the area. I get all that. But let's look at the biggest one. $12.9 billion goes to Afghanistan. Do you think that's money well spent? That's one of the most corrupt governments around. Karzai, he's the worst. Our objectives aren't being met there. Pulling out, that country is basically one of the more unstable countries out there. So I don't think our foreign aid's doing what it should be producing there. Israel, $3.1 billion. A lot of people would argue that that's $3.1 billion. That's freeing up money for other avenues, such as purchasing weapons and bringing about destruction on Gaza. A lot of people are saying Israel's just beating up on the little guy. The problem is the little guy keeps flying rockets over at the big guy. Don't fire the rockets at him. The United States would never sit there and allow Mexico to fire bombs into us. We'd go over there and knock their butts off. Iraq, $1.9 billion. Was that money well spent? You got ISIS over there now controlling over half the country, it looks like. And it's all because of the government that was in there. He basically brought this all upon himself. Egypt, 1.4, led by a military right now. Brotherhood is strong there. Is that money well spent? Pakistan, $1.2 billion. And the list just goes on, folks. On and on. So you should be concerned about all this warfare we're sending out there. And that's what it is. Foreign aid is providing welfare. It's an illegitimate purpose of the government. The purpose of government is supposed to be to protect the lives, liberties, and properties of people. The people who form it. But that's not happening. It's not a proper function of the U.S. government to dispense welfare to its own citizens, let alone to these foreign countries. Why are we providing welfare to them? Foreign aid is blatantly unconstitutional too, folks. The list of powers granted to the federal government in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution includes nothing remotely related to providing charity, feeding hungry, eradicating poor, establishing safety nets, and doing all this stuff. Even if the majority of Americans wanted their government to provide welfare at home or abroad, it could not be done without doing so in violation of the Constitution. Foreign aid is often used for these outlandish purposes. Here's a good example. Just this year, the State Department announced $1.5 million in grant opportunity for job creations for at-risk neighborhoods in countries like Belize. Belize, folks. Why are we putting that much money out there? Put it in Detroit. We got some at-risk neighborhoods here that need that welfare more than them. When did the United States become the entitlement country? When did we become the benefactor to all these countries where we're just giving all this welfare out? The other problem is foreign aid is that it suffers from what Austrian economists call a calculation problem. When an unprecedented tsunami hit Indonesia back in 2004, we pledged $350 million to help those victims. When the cyclone hit Burma in 2008, the U.S. government offered $42 million. The destruction in China in 2008, U.S. emergency relief came to the rescue again, $4.8 million. But you got to sit here and wonder, what countries should we be sending aid to? Should we be sending it to Pakistan, Afghanistan, Israel? How much should we be providing them? What type of aid should be given to these people? Should there be any strings attached? And these are all good questions. But basically, foreign aid defies all logic and common sense. We are told as Americans regularly that various organizations that many children in the United States go to bed hungry at night. They go to school hungry in the morning. Poverty and homelessness are increasing all around us. I did a story on it on the radio yesterday. Why are we out there supporting these foreign countries when we got our own problems here at home? All this welfare does is perpetuate the myth that without intervention of the U.S. government, the response to problems in some countries will not be solved. They'll never go away. Look, we're generous people. We donate millions of dollars in relief efforts all throughout the world. But when's it going to stop? When's it going to stop, folks? And it's not getting us anywhere. Foreign aid is, in essence, a foreign government aid courtesy of U.S. taxpayers. I got to tell you, I'd rather see my money go over to Detroit. I'd rather see my money help the homeless here in Venice, the homeless up there in Sarasota. There's no telling what percentage of foreign aid actually makes it into the hands of people in foreign countries because of these corrupt governments. No American should be forced to contribute to the aid of people or governments in other countries, and that's what what's being done. We're being forced to contribute it. The decision to aid foreigners, like the decision to aid one's family, friends, or neighbors, is a decision that should be left up to each individual American. That's what a free society is, right, folks? A free society includes the freedoms to be unconcerned about the plights of refugees, insensitive to malnourished children, apathetic towards third world poverty. Think about it. Think about it. And this does not mean that there should not be any charity. I'm not saying that. It simply means that charity should be provided voluntarily. They should not be taken out of my tax dollars and given it to Belize, given it to Afghanistan. This should not be happening. Otherwise, in fact, it is not a charity at all, but theft. Isn't it basically it? Theft. The statist mindset assumes that a free society will not help those who are truly in need. This is a terrible indictment on the freedom of man. If foreign aid is wrong in principle, then foreign aid is still wrong when the people in a foreign country suffer from war, poverty, famines, epidemics, floods, cyclones, you name it. It doesn't matter if foreign aid is a small percentage of the federal budget, it is a small percentage of the GDP. It doesn't matter if it has bipartisan support, if it feeds the hungry, clothes the naked, shelters the homeless, treats the sick, educates children, curbs drug addiction. It doesn't matter. It's bad enough that the federal government has welfare programs in the United States. It's even worse when it's exported, in the words of foreign aid. Some good food for thought, folks. And we should all be concerned. This next one is, I was gonna cover something. It's basically an officer, and I'm still working with my software. The new software, I'm having an issue with getting my screen to display. But this is an officer that went on a rant, stating basically that Obama doesn't follow the Constitution, so why should I? Hopefully I'll have the screen. Actually, I got to have the screen working by tomorrow because I need to record my show, so I got to get it working later today, and hopefully we'll do that. So we're going to skip that for now. This is a concern. This is social media tracking. Another violation of privacy. Again, they're selling it on the fact that we're doing it for the safety of our children. They always do that, don't they? Like my rant yesterday on red light cameras. They're doing it for our safety, red light cameras. Well, no, not really. I'm not safer. All the red light camera does is catches the guy after the fact. I don't feel safer. I'm basically not safer. But the school districts across the country, this one in particular, are prepared to track students, and they want to track them through their social media activity using algorithms. Is this intrusive? Is this a violation of privacy? Think about it. This is up in Washington County, Maryland, and they announced last week that when the kids come back to school, their social media accounts will be monitored once the school begins. And they're using some software program known as Social Sentinel. As specific faculty members will be alerted when keywords such as bomb or kill are detected. Critical information that can enhance your ability to identify risk, assess threats, and manage events is being shared publicly right now. It's out there, they're saying. So what's wrong with us doing this? That's their question. And we're doing it out of the guise of safety. We want your kids to be safe at school. This program is programmed. This software is programmed to monitor social media sites such as Vimeo, Google Plus, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. What happens when a word like bomb comes across because you're a fan of that page? Are you going to be pulled out? Are the police going to be called? Basically, once a keyword is detected, the post and other associated comments will be checked for mentions of violence, harassment, bullying, or anything like that. If the algorithm catches a phrase or a word, that will be automatically generated text or an email and send it to the district superintendent. It will go to the principal of the school, the director of school security, and everybody. Posts believed to be extremely violent in nature will be sent to the local police. Is this fair? Is this a violation of privacy? Is it going too far? You know, it's just like the Pop-Tart law. Sometimes we have to enact laws just to prevent stupidity like this program. You know, people were getting suspended from school for going like this with their finger, for making a gun out of a Pop-Tart, for using a pencil. Things I used to do as a kid. So they enacted in Florida the Pop-Tart law. Washington County, only one of the 4 school districts nationwide are you going to use this. It's $20,000 a year. They argue again that the software does not violate any privacy, that it just monitors social media on school property. But many are concerned that it will monitor beyond private school property. And yet this is just another example of surveillance technology bleeding over into our educational system. And they're slowly getting us used to it. You put up cameras everywhere. Everywhere you go down to Sentinel Park here. There's cameras. Where we go. And I asked them about the cameras here, and they said, oh, Public Works is monitoring it. It's not real time. If there's an issue there, they'll go and check it. But they're doing it on the guise of safety. How safe am I if they're checking it after an issue happens? You're not any safer, folks. You're not any safer at all. They're just trying to condition us to violate our privacy, our freedoms. Just last year, a group of engineers in New York announced the creation of the Biometric Classroom Monitoring Program that tracks students' eye movements, conversations, and smiles. Using EngageSense cameras, algorithms in the program will analyze the visual and audio data to give teachers detailed information on every move that students make. Does this make sense, folks? Again, they're selling it on the idea to make create a better environment within our schools. How about Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? They began funding the development of biometric bracelets back in 2012 for school students. Engagement pedometers and electrical currents across the skin to measure a student's response to different stimuli throughout the school day. Is this another violation? Is this something you want going on? And you're not hearing a lot of about this in the in major media. And why? It's important issues. It's stuff that needs to be discussed. But what they do is they sneak it through. And I don't know if it's because major media doesn't have enough time on the news shows, on radio talk shows, in the papers. I'm not sure what the deal is. I'm not sure why they're so quiet on so many of the issues out there. And why you got to go to alternative media. You know, and ever since Clinton came up with the conspiracy theorists to try to discredit alternative media, a lot of people look at it as kooks, when in reality, a lot of this stuff is factual information, and we should be paying attention to it. Next, we're going into the waging a war on whites. And is that what's occurring? Are Democrats waging a war on whites? That's what Congressman Mo Brooks thinks. He sparked a lot of controversy this week by suggesting that Obama and his administration, the Democrat Party, are waging this war on whites as part of a strategy to divide voters on key issues. Interesting. The war on whites. What do you think? They're launching this war by claiming that whites hate everybody else. It's part of the strategy that Barack has implemented since 2008, and he continued through 2012, where he gets up there and he divides us all on race, on sex, creed, envy, class warfare, and everything else. The congressman was specifically referring to claims in the media that Hispanic voters are disgruntled with House Republicans because they're not pushing for the immigration reform. They're probably racist, right? We're racist. You're racist if you don't support immigration reform. If you look at polling data, every demographic group agrees that the rule of law, enforcing and securing our borders, is a good thing. Every one of them understands that illegal immigration hurts everybody, every demographic group. Yet, you're considered a racist if you're for support tighter borders, if you're anti-amnesty. And who's pushing this agenda? The Democrats. Democrats, they have to demagogue on this and try to turn it into a race issue. It's an emotional issue rather than a thoughtful issue, isn't it? As they get more desperate, they are going to argue race and things like that, more heightened emotional state. We shouldn't be dividing anybody on this stuff based upon national heritage or race, but it's happening. Why don't we bring us all together? We're the melting pot, right? That's the whole melting pot ideal of America is all about. A person's skin pigmentation is something acquired at birth. Has absolutely nothing to do with the merits of the person or how they should vote. Soliciting votes of people based upon their skin, in turn attacking whites based upon their skin color, is a bad approach. A bad approach that the Democrats and the Obama administration appears to be using. Certainly, if you were to flip a coin and a white person were to say vote for somebody that's white because they're white, it could be there would be an uproar, and deservedly so, folks. I can see that. I get that. So why do we allow blacks to say they vote for a black person because they're black, or Hispanics to vote for a Hispanic person because they're Hispanic, yet no uproar? Race is immaterial, and we should all be treated the same. Think about it, folks. This congressman has a good point. What's this congressman's name again? Republican Mo Brooks. He has some valid concerns, valid points there, folks. Now, the next thing is Bitcoin. Bitcoin. This is a cryptocurrency. And apparently the Fed's upset about it. They're concerned about it. I've been following it. I have concerns about it. I've seen a few issues come up about it, and I'm just not sold on it. I'm waiting to see what happens, and probably because I'm waiting, I'll miss out. But the Fed is highly alarmed about it. They don't want anything, they don't like competition, let's say. But internal reports have revealed that this cryptocurrency will supersede the existing Fed monopoly on money within 12 years. One of the best things I like about this is you can put your money into Bitcoin. I can go to Italy, I can take it out and avoid all the taxes. And many countries probably don't like that. So we had this whistleblower come out to InfoWars. He was employed as a briefing researcher for the Fed Reserve. And he revealed that the Fed governors were highly alarmed by the major internal reports revealing that Bitcoin would likely supersede the dollar system within the next 12 years. I don't know if I buy that. I could see why they would be concerned about it, but I don't know if I buy it. They basically tasked this guy with going out and coming up with a report on Bitcoin, looking into it and see what kind of concerns they should have, see what kind of issues there are. First, this whistleblower was lackadaisical about it, approached it in a lackadaisical manner. They said, hey, it's not good enough. We really want something that goes in and analyzes this thing. We were directed, this is what the whistleblower was saying, we were directed to upgrade our modeling of Bitcoin from developing currency to a major currency. What we found was shocking, he said. Even the mediocre adoption rate and variable growth rate of Bitcoin severely disrupted how we model, forecast, and ultimately understand currency interactions in the monetary policy decisions. So they're thinking Bitcoin's going to be a huge technological, monetary, and policy disruption. I don't know. I don't know if I'm buying that. And it's not just Bitcoin. There's a lot of cryptocurrencies out there. It goes a long ways, though. A lot of people, the problem here is a lot of people aren't happy with the dollar being the reserve currency. It gives America too much power. It gives America the freedom to print money and not pay their bills, not to face austerity, to spin on frivolous issues. But the board is highly alarmed about it. And I got to tell you, I'm one who can't stand how the Federal Reserve is seen as a government entity. It's not a government entity, folks. It's a private institution. It's a private bank. A private bank. Okay? We're starting to see, lastly, we're just starting to see a lot more out of Russia. And a lot of it's misinformation. If you follow my show, and I was big on, hey, look, we basically financially supported the uprising in Ukraine. We supported the puppet government that was put in place there. We brought on a lot of what's happening over in the Ukraine now. Russia got upset. Russia's no angel, but they got upset, and rightfully so. If Russia was over in Mexico doing what we did in the Ukraine, we would be upset. But, now a lot of people are just wondering if ignorance or deliberate disinformation is occurring. Obama will sit there and state that there are facts about Russia which aren't facts. One little thing is like Russia doesn't make money. Wrong. According to Russia's central bank, they export products and services have brought in $593 billion last year. I don't know about you, but I call that making money. Russia sold $15.7 billion worth of weaponry to 60 countries. China and India alone. You got to be concerned about that they're selling these weapons to all these countries, and they're going to be forced to do it even more so with all these bans. But Russia's come back and said, look, we're tired of your sanctions. We're tired of your bans. So now they're imposing a total ban on all deliveries of beef, pork, fruit, vegetables, poultry, and everything from the United States. And trade between the United States and Russia has more than tripled over the last decade. And this is according to the Department of Commerce. Meat from the United States represents 19% of the trade between the two countries. Russia is one of the largest export markets for chicken, at 39% of the total U.S. exports. They bought $43 billion worth of food last year, and they're the biggest consumer of EU fruit and vegetables. But they're banning it now. They're not taking any of that in. How's that going to impact our economy? How's that going to impact our pricing? So Russia's starting to say, hey, look, we're just tired of these sanctions. We're tired of these bans, and now we're going to start implementing some against you guys. Financially, you're going to feel the squeeze, just like we are. Economists say sanctions imposed on Russia's finance, oil, and defense industries have affected the Russian economy, and they're on the edge of a recession. And Russia considers it to be economic warfare, and they vowed to respond, which they're doing. And now many people are concerned. And that's just that issue. What about now, militarily speaking, it's growing real concerning. They're building up their forces along the Ukrainian line. Before America said that, and I think it was more just propaganda out there stating it, trying to push for some sanctions against Russia, action against Russia. But now, a few months later, alternative media is starting to mention it, that there is this buildup there. And now you got Russian bombers that are basically coming into the U.S. Air Force. There's been over 16 incursions of the U.S. Air Force defense zones. So they're starting to test our airspace out there. They had strategic nuclear bombers. These aren't regular bombers. These are nuclear bombers. And they've flown into the northwestern U.S. air defense identification zones. And they've done it at least 16 times in just the last 10 days. These are these are the Tu-95 Russian Bear H bombers, and it's unprecedented, leading some to believe that Russia is testing our air defenses to see what they can get away with. The flights were detected by our NORAD, and they prompted us to scramble jets to see what's going on. The bombers may be intentionally seeking to trigger air defense, as Soviet fighters did during the Cold War in preparation for nuclear conflict. Who knows? Who knows? Obama's foreign policy is what's bringing all this on. I shouldn't say his foreign policy, because he really doesn't have any good, solid foreign policy. He really doesn't, folks. It's his inability to get out there and handle the situation. It's just like right now he came out and he said, we're going to bomb Iraq if they go near our interest over in Kyrgyzstan, or if they get in our way of providing food to the 40,000 people on the mountain. That's defensive. And why now? Why wasn't he doing this back when ISIS started taking over the country? There are only 10,000 soldiers. Well, this was months ago. I don't know how many now. In ISIS. Why weren't we in there before protecting our interests? He kept saying, you know what the problem is? He keeps saying that he succeeded in Iraq. We succeeded over and over and over. And so he pulls all of our military out of there, which was probably the biggest mistake. That just opened the floodgates. And now we got a major issue with ISIS. And then you got Iran. I think they sent, 20,000 fighters into Iraq? So now we're partners with Iran because they don't like ISIS. And we're allowing Iran to go into Iraq. We should be concerned about this, folks. It just shows how our foreign affairs, our inability to get over there, our nation building, we got to stop it. And this is what Iraq is, nation building. Afghanistan, nation building. Ukraine, nation building. When are we going to learn our lesson and get out of these countries and stop doing this? All right, we're going to end the show right there, folks. Again, it was might have seen a little dry. I really, be honest with you, now that's the end of the show, I can tell you I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for this. With my work, in the medical consulting, doing the show last night, I really was in the weeds and did not have, I maybe had a half hour to prepare for the show. But, my philosophy is, hey, it's free. It's free. You're getting all this information for free, so deal with it. What do you think about that? Okay, so this has been Frankie. This is Francesco Abbruzzino Show. You can go to my site, which is on that banner at the bottom. Check it out. I'm looking at it now. The live version looks pretty good. It looks like the video feed is looking pretty good. It looks like I have several people on there, but you can never tell the true tracking on it. So hopefully the volume is good too. So this has been Francesco Abbruzzino. Remember to check out my show tomorrow if you're local here in Sarasota County, covering some good stuff on the MPPD, the homeless issue, and many other issues out there on 9:30 a.m. or at philsgang.com or at the francescoabbruzzino.show.com. And that's it. I will see everybody on Monday. For Frankie, this is bid you farewell. See everybody later.